Yes, I'm going to start with the slideshow. So, thank you very much. So, I guess if you haven't come across the Cenefits application before, it's essentially a web and mobile application which makes it easy for organizations to deliver community benefits in their projects at scale. So for organizations like Renfrewshire Council and a number of other councils and public organizations in Scotland. And it's really primarily geared to being used to deliver community benefits. People use other terms to capture the same of sentiment elsewhere in the UK as well, particularly kind of terms like social value as well. But I guess for our purposes today, obviously we're clearly talking about the kind of community benefits based angle. And yeah, I guess I'm just going to give you kind of a quick overview of the different aspects of the application kind of from a theoretical point of view, and then we're going to flip over to the actual application itself, and I can kind of show you how you'd interact with it. So within the application itself, I guess kind of in terms of the general flow, project managers at the buyer organization, they can create projects in the application. Those things essentially, I guess, maybe the equivalent of contracts in this scenario. And then they can fill out the information for those things, and then they can mark them as published or unpublished. If the projects are unpublished, then you wouldn't see the benefits associated with them yourself in your account. But once they're published, you'd be able to. Um, and you'll get an email essentially when a project is published. We have this concept of delivery dates. So within a project, for each of the kind of benefits that are created within a project, there are essentially there are a number of dates. I mean, there's only one compulsory date, which is the kind of completion date for a benefit that the project manager will definitely enter, but they're able to enter a start date and an additional date if they want to, I guess, depending on maybe the nature and length of the benefit. And the people that are assigned to those benefits, whether they're people within the buyer organization itself, maybe who have their own perspective to give as evidence for a benefit, or people from the supplier or delivery partners who are probably largely yourselves, who've been tasked and asked to kind of provide evidence. You receive an email digest every Tuesday morning, if there's something in it, just letting you know about benefits that are coming up to that for a delivery date that's due. So essentially, as it says here, the week before, the week of the kind of date, and the week after the date, you get those three reminders in that kind of digest. So, for example, you've got multiple benefits on the go at any one time. You wouldn't get multiple different emails for them. You just get the one reminder with them all in it, and that's got a direct link in it to click through to kind of to see where you can upload the activity as well. Ultimately, if you don't submit some evidence by a week after the delivery date, the project manager at the buyer organization just gets an email to let them know, and then they can have a chat with you about that. Essentially, within the application, I guess there are two types of users really. There's employees or regular users who form the bulk of the kind of the people who are using the application from your point of view. There's also, I guess, a new class of user called an admin user, which has elevated privileges, but doesn't come for free. And I'll talk to you about that a bit later on. The capturing evidence. I guess the main purpose of the application is to capture kind of evidence, and that's really obviously just to make sure that the benefit that you've agreed with the buyer, with Renfrewshire in this case, has been delivered satisfactorily. You're happy with it, and they're happy with what you've delivered. So really, you do that by submitting evidence. So for each of these delivery dates that we've talked about, there's a series of questions that you'll be asked to answer kind of in the interface, and they can be of a number of different types. So just a kind of a normal textual question, or a question with a numerical answer, or a multiple choice, or a single choice. So different kinds of questions that may have been put in there for the different types of benefits that you answer. So those can be customized for the particular different types of benefits that you answer. They're not necessarily the same across the board. So obviously it depends, which of those different sort of thematic areas, you're delivering a benefit in. But essentially, you're filling out those questions, and you can attach one or more documents or photos to them as evidence, and then click to submit them for approval. So the buyer project manager will get an email to let them know that evidence has been submitted, and waiting for them to kind of check through it. There's an additional feature which is a kind of an optional extra thing. So when you're submitting answers to the questions, kind of below the area where you do that, and below the area where you kind of attach, actually above the area where you attach the kind of files, there's a kind of a little concertina box which I'll show you. That's got some things that you can do to kind of, I guess, enhance or enrich the information that's associated with the benefit itself. So if it's a benefit that's kind of of a generic type, and it doesn't currently have a label, or the label that you see in the kind of table isn't an appropriate one, you can suggest a label or suggest a kind of change to that label, and then that's something that I guess both parties can then more easily use to distinguish that particular instance of the benefit from others, in the list that they're dealing with. You've got delivery dates, so obviously the delivery dates that were originally probably entered by the project manager. Perhaps you either want to make a change to those delivery dates, or have some other proposal. You can suggest changes to those here. Maybe you'd originally agreed that this was being delivered in a particular location, and it's a different one. Again, you could suggest a change of that. And if there's a kind of if as part of this work it was kind of monetarily based, and that you were agreeing to do an amount of work, and that changes or fluctuates slightly, again, there's an option to change that. And finally, I should probably have checked. I just see in Renfrewshire you're using the kind of priorities feature for benefits in the application. If so, then again, another thing you can do, if you find that there are priorities that you're working on that maybe haven't been captured yet, again, you can suggest those as things. So all these suggestions are essentially things that would go to the project manager, and when they look at the kind of the answers to the questions for the evidence, which is kind of the main thing that you're doing, as well as any files you've attached, they'd see these any suggested changes as well, and they'd be able to individually approve or reject those. And they could obviously have a conversation with you by email or phone if they wanted to discuss it. But I guess it's just it was a way to try and a feature that we added a year or so ago to try and make it easier to kind of collectively enrich the kind of data in the benefits, rather than just relying solely on the project manager. Once you've clicked to submit that evidence, the kind of project manager at the buyer will get an email, with a link to the evidence. So they then just click on that, and they can go through into the application, and they can review the kind of answers to the questions that you've submitted. Click to kind of download and view the kind of documents and photos that you've provided, if you have done. And again, if you've made any suggestions, again, they can individually kind of accept or reject those. But in terms of the kind of the main bulk, the kind of answer the questions and the photos, they can accept or reject that whole piece of evidence. I guess the main reason they might reject it is just if it's maybe it's not quite enough detail for what they're looking for to kind of to answer and to understand what you've been doing, or maybe you've included some information there which can't be stored in the database, some kind of GDPR related information that was not appropriate. So it's just a chance to, if they wanted to kind of to send that back and give a reason why. But hopefully on the whole they would just accept the evidence that you submitted. I guess one other thing just to mention, that the benefits have different kinds of statuses. So they have a kind of these are kind of standard fields, so not started, in progress, delayed, abandoned, overdue, delivered, partially delivered, substituted, or not delivered. And when the statuses have a star, essentially the project manager can record a reason why it's in that status. Typically, I guess an abandoned status would be just something which the authority itself has decided to not progress with. And substituted, I guess, is just where you weren't able to deliver a particular benefit, maybe in a particular location or particular people, or maybe entirely, and so you've worked with them to introduce a different one, so they would use that status to record that. And the other one, I guess, which might be not completely clear, is the partially delivered one. So that's where maybe you didn't fully realize what you'd originally envisaged to do, but you still want to record the kind of good work that you've done. So there's a kind of an option to do that as well. But yeah, feedback. So this is kind of more of an optional thing. But once you've submitted evidence for something, the email that gets to confirm that you've done that and to thank you for your and to confirm that it's been approved and to thank you for your work also has a link where you can click through to submit feedback, and it's a very similar process as the evidence one, in that it's really a set of questions that will be there in different boxes that you can answer. Again, you can attach documents or photos to that if you want to, and then submit it for approval. And the same kind of process would follow. Project manager get an email, they can review the information. I wouldn't often expect someone to reject feedback. I guess again that probably would mostly be if there's some kind of GDPR thing going on. But I guess obviously there's an option there before kind of finally kind of keeping it in the kind of permanent record. What you've submitted. One of the things, so just behind the scenes, there's a couple of other things just to kind of point out. So one is this idea of a red, amber, green status. So the projects in the application, we automatically calculate a kind of a RAG status for them based on the number of benefits that are inside them that have been delivered, benefit value, points, emission savings. At any one time, we know how many of those things and what quantity of those things there are that should have been delivered because of the dates. So we can base, on the basis of that, we can flag a project as red, amber, or green to kind of for further attention or not. In some cases, that kind of automated kind of calculation might have been overridden, maybe where project manager wants particular targets for some of those fields. And in that case, the values, the RAG status will be based on those values and not the kind of automated totality of things that are in the project. But I guess it's just to let you know that there's a kind of a way to try and, as well as those kind of reminders to kind of project managers when someone hasn't submitted some evidence, that there's still a way to kind of keep track of big projects as a whole as well. Yeah. So I'm going to stop here. I'm maybe come back to these slides in a bit. I think I'm going to stop there with these ones and come back to the annual reports bit in a bit. I'm going to take you to, because I want to kind of just take you to the demo of the application for that kind of initial, probably bulk use case before maybe touching on kind of what you can do if you are an admin, and also show you a bit on the buyer side as well. So I'm just going to log into I guess if you haven't been here before, you can just come to our website, cenefits.com, and click on the web login, and take you here. And then you can, I guess another thing I should say, when you first get invited to, did I type that password correctly? Hopefully. When you first get invited to no, I didn't. Let me just type that in, and then we'll go. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, when you first get invited to join Cenefits, you'll get an email invite, which probably would have been created by one of the project managers at the buyer at the point at which they start creating some benefits and want to invite you or your colleague to kind of submit evidence to it. So at the first time you see that, you'll get an invitation to join, and you just click through that and enter a password and accept the kind of the terms, and then you're essentially into an interface that looks hopefully look a bit like this one. And really, for the bulk use case, it's hopefully quite simple. You really just have the kind of the 3 or 4 different things that you can click on. You have your kind of submit section here, your profile, a kind of a help icon down here, and log out. So I guess the main place I guess you would spend time is in the submit section, and in here, the pending evidence tab is what you would be taken to by default. So that's showing you things which are due for you to submit evidence. So if you get an email in one of those weekly digests on a Tuesday, which is kind of letting you know that there's some evidence that you need to submit, then those things would already be in this section, because the reason you're getting the email is because those things are pending. So there's a linkage there between those things. But if you were in the application anyway, because you're a big fan and you like using it a lot, you might notice on this page that when things pop up anyway as well. But there is a wider pool of evidence potentially, depending on what you're doing. Maybe you're part of a big project with lots and lots of benefits with different kind of dates. So there would maybe in this wider tab, there might be a longer list of things that aren't in bold, that are maybe things that you can still look at and you can still be working on and can start to kind of draft evidence for, but which are not yet due for submission. So if we go back and look at this, I guess just in terms of what's on this page. So if you need to search to find things, you can search by the kind of name of the benefit, or also all of the benefits have a kind of a 4-character alphanumeric code that's unique as well. So depending on how you use it, you can either search by kind of the name of the thing, or search by that reference number, and it'll filter it out. The same with the kind of projects or contracts. If you've got a contract that's got a particular kind of name, in this case we've got the kind of name down here, then you can search by the name. But also equally, most buyer organizations will also have a kind of a unique reference number of some kind that kind of indicates what that contract. So again, you can search by that in that box. And then searching by organization, it's essentially searching by the kind of name of the buyer organization. So if you're working with multiple buyers in Cenefits, you can kind of filter down to the one that you're looking at. And then essentially when you're in here, you can just click on whichever benefit it is that you're interested in. And you'll see, at the top of the view, there's kind of a table with some summary information about that benefit. So the kind of project or contract that it's in, what the kind of name of the benefit is, and its reference number, a label. So this labels are the kind of things which I kind of mentioned earlier. So if someone has, because this is, I guess, a common benefit, this particular type of benefit, so there'll be many benefits that would have this outcome: volunteer expertise and resources, social enterprise, and charity. In this example use case, then to distinguish between them, we let people put in a label as well, so that they know that it refers to a particular instance of that. There may be a description which kind of explains in a bit more detail, maybe than this demo content, around what's expected for that type of benefit. And then you may have some kind of suggested some values for like for either depending on the organization, points or monetary value or emission savings values, or none of those. Just I guess, which is maybe a way in which they might use to kind of capture and understand how these things are all contributing to what they're wanting to achieve. And then probably in most cases, I guess benefits would probably have a quantity of 1. My advice to buyers is usually, if you're dealing with people, maybe it's to do with like apprenticeships or whatever, probably deal with those on a one-to-one basis. But if you're, I don't know, have a benefit to plant 50 trees or something, then maybe obviously the quantity there could be 50. So it's obviously flexibly up to the buyer what they do use that for. But I probably suspect a lot of them would be 1. And then the status, which we mentioned already, these can be obviously in different statuses. If you want to kind of get in touch with the project manager who's assigned, or the project managers who are assigned to this particular benefit, you can do that. You can just pop down the accordion and see their email address, and get in touch with them, reach out to them. And then I guess we get into the main bit of the form. So I mentioned earlier that you can have the only required date from the buyer side to input is the completion date. So all benefits in this application will have a completion date, but sometimes they might have filled in the start date as well, and they might have filled in additional sort of interim dates. I guess that's probably most likely if someone is, maybe delivering a benefit over a long period of time, and they want to check in with you. Maybe it's quite a complex benefit. They want to check in with you at various points over kind of a multi-year period, or perhaps they are using it in a way where they've got a multiple quantity and they want to have different dates for each item. So obviously there's a bit of flexibility in the system there. But I suspect probably on the whole, certainly if you look at our stats, most benefits tend to just have a completion date. I guess if there is a start date, that's probably usually more of an opportunity to explain what you're going to do, or what you're about to be doing, rather than obviously the completed work. Whereas obviously an interim date would be more what your current progress, and the completion date, the totality of what you've achieved. But you can toggle between those. Obviously, in this case, actually, it's not the 30th of May yet. So the reason this is triggered and been shown in that pending view is because the start date evidence is due, because we're after the 19th. But essentially, the questions will be the same. So I've just put in some dummy questions here just to basically show you the different types of questions you can have. So the text question, obviously the most straightforward one, some kind of textual answer that you want to type into the box. Obviously 1 sentence, paragraph, it's a text area, so you can put a textual answer in there. We have a kind of a multiple choice question, so you can select one or more of the answers in that. You have a kind of a basic numerical question, so this field will only accept kind of decimal number based answers, and then you have a single choice question as well, which only lets you pick one of the different answers. So obviously the questions that you see will be related to the type of benefit that you're doing. So hopefully, the buyer will have thought of some interesting and appropriate questions related to that particular type of activity that they want the answers on. I mentioned this kind of these suggestions. So these are kind of hidden away in concertinas because you might not necessarily want to use them, but perhaps you want to suggest a change to something. Maybe this label wasn't quite capturing what it is that the thing is about, or it's changed slightly. You could come here and suggest a different one, or maybe you realize that you can do one of the dates sooner, or you want to add an additional date in for some reason to give additional evidence. I guess probably some of these things you might want to have a discussion with the project manager before doing, but certainly if it's an obvious change, you could just suggest something here in terms of dates and kind of location, monetary value, or kind of additional priorities, or changes to the numbers of people that. These are from my demo content, so these will not necessarily be what you see, but whatever the buyer has set up as priorities, you be able to kind of select from and add to, and then once you've done that, I guess you're confirming, just from a GDPR point of view, that you haven't everything's okay from a GDPR point of view, and then you can click to create the evidence. Once you've created the evidence, you've then got two things you can do. You can click to upload files, so you can click and it'll just load up the kind of file picker from your operating system. If you're on the phone, it'll use the kind of phone's file picker and also let you take pictures with the camera. And you can then basically select those and they'll upload and be attached to the evidence. When that happens, they take about, I guess, at least from the buyer's perspective, they take about 5 minutes for them to be available to download and have a look at, because they go through our kind of our virus scanning and our assurance processes essentially before they're kind of made publicly available. But and then you can click to submit for approval. So that's basically going to send an email to the project manager for this particular benefits. In this case, this user will get an email to say this benefit's now ready for them to kind of review and have a look at. One extra thing. So sometimes, and I think this is the case with some of the Renfrewshire things, you have a template which is associated with the benefit or the feedback, and so you'll be able to click on this button and download it. And the reason we have that is sometimes, well, actually historically we didn't actually have these questions kind of built into the application. So for some of our older buyers who maybe haven't transitioned yet that approach, who wanted more of a structured answer, they provided a way for you to kind of download a form, fill in questions, and then upload it to them. So there may be some buyers that still do that. Or there may be some particular kind of additional information that they want in a different format. So I guess probably as part of the guidance that the buyer issues to you, they would explain that. I guess I have an example of an older one from the city region. This is a kind of example of an older form that was used. I don't know if it's maybe still be used in some cases, but to kind of answer particular questions around, I guess, an employability related benefit, and also indicating the kind of priority groups that have been benefited, various information. So that's kind of an example of maybe the type of thing that some organizations might include as a kind of as a template there. So that's the main thing, I guess, that you're doing really. As we discussed in the kind of the PowerPoint, on the buyer side, they're then getting an email. The project manager, they're checking the evidence and they're approving or rejecting it. If they reject it, you'll get an email saying, hey, would you mind changing this, that, or the other, and resubmitting it. But otherwise, you just get an email to say that it's been accepted and approved. And when you get that approval through, the evidence will appear in the approved tab here. But you also get a link to provide feedback. So if you want to provide feedback, you would you'd see that here. I don't know. We've got an example of one. What these should have actually. So yeah. Well, that's an approved one. Hopefully this has got some questions in it. Yeah, okay. So for example, the questions that get asked, I guess, for feedback are different, or can be different to the ones that are asked for evidence. Probably should be. So they're probably more really about, how obviously these are example questions again, but really, I guess trying to tease out, what you thought went well, what didn't go well, what you'd like to improve in the future. So on both sides really. So, but I guess again, it's up to the organisation to really have to define what these are. But a similar kind of thing, you'd fill out the questions. There's no concertina on this one because it's not kind of relevant. So once you've created your feedback, you'd have the option to kind of upload, files and photos and things, and then submit for approval. Again, project manager can accept or reject that. And that rejection is pretty more from like a kind of a data integrity and appropriateness point of view, probably more in the feedback sense. Whereas in the evidence sense, I suspect it's probably as much about making sure that they've got the quality that they want from you. But yeah, that's the kind of the main flow of the application really. In addition, the other things that you can do, obviously quite straightforward. You can come and you can, I don't know, if you change your name, you can come and update your name or your phone number. If you want to change your password or periodically, obviously you can come and do that. And you can also update your email address as well. So if you've got a few basic kind of admin things there, and then in the bottom right you've got this kind of item here, which has some articles that help. Particularly this section down at the bottom here, I guess suppliers and delivery managers. I should say delivery partners. Sorry, I'm going to correct that. I don't know why it says delivery managers, but yeah, suppliers and delivery partners. And this is really just probably going over what I've just kind of explained to you, but kind of in the app if you need a kind of reminder about how that works. And if you have any technical problems with the application, you can just click contact us, and that's kind of a way to get through to me and my colleagues, and we can get back to you as well. I guess if there's obviously a question to do with the kind of the actual content and the kind of the contractual obligations, the community benefits themselves, you obviously direct that to the project manager at the buyer. But if it's a technical question, obviously we're very happy to kind of help you and answer those for you. But yeah, that's the kind of the basic thing. One thing, and that's what I guess the majority of you would see and do, and hopefully that's quite straightforward and not too onerous for you, and a good way to keep track of these things. So one thing that we have, I guess, developed and added, but we haven't made widely available yet, is a kind of a paid feature for you if you're interested, if you're working at scale with. Let me just sign in as this user. Again, I'll probably get the password wrong because I'm doing it in real time. Yeah, so for those of you who do a lot of community benefits, I mean, we have some suppliers and delivery partners who work at significant scale, with scores or hundreds of benefits, and maybe multiple people in the organization. So we've kind of developed some extra functionality for them, where they can basically pay on a monthly basis for one or more admin users, and then those users have some additional capabilities. I won't go into too much detail with that now, but just to kind of give you a summary of what the differences are. So obviously you'll recognize the submit, profile, logout sections and the question mark, but they also have some additional capabilities. So one is to be able to invite their colleagues to the application. So normally, as you remember, you will have got an invitation because the buyer's project manager has invited you to provide evidence to a benefit. But if you want to administer an organization with a number of people in it, you might need to kind of archive people that have left the business, or maybe change their details, or otherwise invite additional people to your organization. So rather than having to speak to different buyer project managers and get them all to add new people and change them around, you can just invite your own colleagues to the application, and maintain that kind of that list of people. I guess once you've done that, you can mass assign or unassign those people to benefits. So you would go to an assign view to do that. You could filter the list of benefits that are assigned to your organization with various different fields, and you get to the set that you wanted, and you can select everything or just the individual items you're interested in, and then you can select the colleague that you want to assign or unassign to those benefits. So it's a way for you, I guess, independently of the buyer, it would be a way for you to kind of to manage that side of things as well. One other thing you can do in here, so let's say your organization merges or changes names or whatever it is, and you want to suggest a change to your name, you can fill that information out here. And we are quite stringent in terms of maintaining the kind of list of organizations in the application to avoid any kind of duplication, which you might have come across in other kind of public sector applications. But in this one, yeah, we stick to the kind of registration numbers and the official names that are in Companies House or the Office of the Scottish Charity Regulator or Charity Commission or whatever. So like if you're changing names, this doesn't go through straight away. It's something that goes to us to check for approval, just so that we keep that database really clean and up to date. And yeah, the other main feature you've got, I guess, if you were to have one or more admin users, is an ability to download reports. So this is something which our buyers have. They have, they can download reports across all of their projects and benefits, and gives them the kind of the information, kind of a summary of what's going on. So again, if you're working at significant scale in the application, you can download reports in here, with information about all the different projects, kind of all the different fields in those. And then also from the benefit point of view, you can filter and download both the kind of evidence and things that you've submitted, but also all the kind of different columns that are in those benefits, all the kind of key data in there, including things like the kind of the number of priorities delivered and all those sorts of things. But yeah, that's just a quick look at that. Yeah, I guess maybe I'll stop for questions now, and then I can also maybe in a little bit. I don't want to confuse you with too much information, but I can probably, and I think show you briefly what the buyer side looks like, just so that you've got an idea of what's going on over there. But as I said, I didn't want to bamboozle you too much with information now, so I don't know if now's a good time to kind of take some questions.
Yeah, there's a question coming in. When will these features be available? Sorry, I don't have the name. I've only got a number or against it, but it said, when will these features be available?
Sure, the admin features. I mean, we have a few users who've been testing them for a while, but I mean, they can be available very very shortly if you like to use them. I guess just reach out to me and let me know. It's something I guess we'll probably. I'm going to refresh our website and various materials within the next couple of months, and so it'll be much more publicly obvious at that point that these things are things that you could take advantage of. But yeah, if you want to try it out or want to learn more, obviously reach out to me in the interim. Obviously, for everyone, the kind of the main initial screen I showed you, which I'll go back to, is the one which everyone sees, and there's no charge to you for using that. I'm just losing my mind whilst I'm talking to you, Hannah.
That's okay.
But
There's
yeah.
other questions coming in. Let
Okay,
me just
cool.
put this one to
Yes,
Holly
please.
or probably actually Lauren. How would Renfrewshire Council align this with the wider contract reporting requirements? Will it be required at the same time as a quarterly or annual report? How will Cenefits input be assessed alongside wider contract performance?
Hi, yeah, so in terms of
Sorry, Lynn, can you put your camera on? Can you put your camera on? It's Missy speaking. Thank you.
Yeah, so in terms of your contract performance, obviously your community benefits makes up part of that. And generally at the moment or previously before Cenefits came in, you would be asked quarterly or annually, depending on the contract. In terms of when you're reporting now through Cenefits, as long as the Cenefits system is being kept up to date, that covers you in terms of your contractual requirements, performance-wise, in terms of community benefits. So as long as your system is up to date and your evidence is submitted when your benefits have been delivered, that is across the contract, that will count towards your reporting. So there won't be double reporting, as we'll know from the system what you've delivered and what you haven't.
Perfect. No more questions at the moment. Remember, guys, you can put your hand up if you want to chat to our experts, or you can pop your question to the live chat. Tom, do you want to go on now and show us the buyer side?
Yeah, I'll do that. And as I say, I won't do it in significant detail, just to give you a flavour so you understand what's going on that side as well. I don't want to bamboozle you guys too much, just a little bit, just enough. All right, let me log in. So this is, I guess, an admin user, I guess the user that was kind of administering those benefits that we saw earlier. So I guess for the buyer, I guess there's a few extra things there. So they can create the kind of projects, the contracts themselves, and have a number of different fields to do to kind of create those projects and publish them and unpublish them. They can create the benefits that you see. From their perspective, they have two different types of benefits. They have those that are, I guess, of a standard type. So they've created a template for them essentially. So maybe things that are on a framework or menu. I forget the exact term that he used for Renfrewshire earlier, but those kinds are kind of common ones that you might select and pull off. And they also have the option to create a kind of a unique benefit. So that's where it's a kind of a one-off idea. Maybe you or the buyer or someone else has come up with a really cool idea that doesn't fit within a normal categorization. There's kind of an option to kind of create those types of things as well. They've got the kind of various filters and things that they can create, including kind of different benefit priorities, as well as sort of creating those different things. They can invite people, so they can invite their own colleagues, and then they can also invite organizations that are in our platforms. I think there's about 1,500 suppliers in the application at the moment, so maybe they're not necessarily working with all of them, and they can find the ones they want to work with, and they can do that, and they can request us to add new organizations to the platform. They can mass import things. So if they've previously been working with spreadsheets a lot, or they're doing some work with spreadsheets, they can mass import the kind of projects and benefits. But ultimately, they are checking evidence that's been submitted. So I think this is actually the one that we submitted earlier. So let's say this user was the kind of project manager for that benefit. They'd get an email and they can click and they can come through and have a look at it. Hopefully it's going to. There we go. So yeah, here are the answers. I guess we provided those questions earlier whilst you were on. So the answers to those particular questions. I don't think I uploaded a file. I would be able to download it if I had. I don't think we actually made any suggestions in the end. If I'd made suggestions, they would also appear here with their own kind of approve button below. But yeah, they can click to either approve that evidence, or they can just reject it and type a little message about why, as well as potentially making some quick changes to things like the status and things as they do that. And the same with the feedback. They would have a list of those things. I don't know if there'll be any here actually, and they can approve or reject those. Once they've done that, they've got a little dashboard to kind of measure things at a high level, to give them a quick look at projects and the kind of the common types of benefits that they've got, and how many are being delivered, how many priorities are being delivered. Just some headline figures. We're actually looking at doing a piece of work soon to kind of enhance that, to give them a bit more detail in terms of what they want to know in those kind of dashboards. But the main thing, I guess, for getting information at the moment is to download it. So quite similar to the kind of the supplier admin section I showed you a moment ago. They've got an option to kind of download reports about projects, kind of the headline information about projects and the priorities associated with them, the kind of summary or headline information around benefits and what, where they're at in terms of their status and pending evidence and things, and how many priorities are being delivered. And then they also have the ability to download the kind of the evidence and the feedback itself for the different kinds of benefits. So I think that's I guess additionally to that, there's the kind of the main features. I guess you've also got all the kind of maybe more boring how many things of actually all the actual information, be able to see it and edit it. So they've got different ways of kind of looking at the projects and the benefits themselves. And the organizations linked to their account, their colleagues, filters, and they can they can click on these and they can edit them that way. So they can edit the benefit information. They can type some private notes, check the evidence and stuff like that. So, but yeah, as I say, don't want to get too into the weeds with it, but that just gives you a sense of, there is some method to the madness. There is, on both sides, obviously striving to make this as efficient a process as possible, and potentially at significant scale, thousands or tens of thousands of benefits. So, yeah. I don't know if you have any questions about that. Obviously, very happy to answer those as well.
Yeah, there's some more questions coming through. Heather was asking, when will the welcome emails be issued with login details?
So I guess that's so when, I guess in this case, when